This experience occurred when I was 16 years old, an age of challenge and change. I, like most boys, underwent tremendous changes both physically and mentally as I entered puberty. These changes made me emotionally unstable, and I often experienced emotional ups and downs and impulsivity. During this period, my relationship with my father became strained, and we often argued over trivial matters. I began to seek independence and tried to get rid of my dependence on him. We would often have arguments over minor things. I was confused and bored with my family. I began to question the relationship between family members and felt confused about my role in it. Sometimes I would feel alone and unappreciated, feeling that no one really understood my inner confusion and struggles. At the same time, fear of the future began to creep into my mind. I was worried about whether I would ever find my own path. At one point, I had a heated argument with my father. The reason for the argument was about my studies. At that time, I was at a critical stage in high school, facing important exams and decisions. I felt stressed and needed to focus on my studies, but my father was very strict about my academics and his expectations frustrated me. During the argument, I became more and more emotional and I couldn't stand the stress and tension in my family. I decided to leave home temporarily and go to a friend's place for a few days to seek some time to calm down. It was a hot summer day, and the continuous hot weather had been going on for almost 2 months. People were longing for a timely rainfall. It was on the last day of September that there was a change in the sky. At that time, I was playing basketball with my friends. We saw that it was going to rain, so we went back to his house. We heard the sound of raindrops hitting the glass from outside the window. We felt excited and couldn't wait to go outside the house to meet the long-awaited rainfall. We felt the change in the air. The rain gently dripped down on our bodies. While we were playing in the rain, a bolt of lightning struck me and a nearby tree. Instantly, I felt my body lose control and then fell to the ground. It happened so suddenly that I didn't have time to react in any way. As far as I can remember, I did not feel anything noticeable when the lightning struck me. No electricity passed through my body, and there was no painful sensation. The sounds around me were slowly fading. I was lying on the ground and my consciousness was becoming fuzzy. I wasn't sure if I was still alive. When I regained consciousness, I found myself in an unfamiliar place. It was as if it was an observation room, with a movie projected on the wall of the room. I was surprised to find that the clips were all scenes from my past life. One of the images struck me particularly, and it took me back to the time when I was a child. At that time, my neighbor's kid had just bought a new bicycle. He used to ride his bike around the neighborhood. I was very jealous in my heart. In that image, I saw myself creeping closer to that little boy. I wanted to make a fool of him in front of everyone. I pushed him down hard. At the time, I didn't realize the damage it was doing to him. When I saw this image here, I was shocked by my own actions. I realized the damage that this seemingly small prank had done to him. I felt guilt and remorse, acutely aware that I had acted irresponsibly and cruelly at the time. This image made me realize that hurting others not only causes them pain, but also damage to my own heart. In this observation room, I was not being judged or blamed. Suddenly, I felt the presence of a strong energy around me. I thought he was Jesus. Although I did not see his image with my own eyes, I could feel his presence and the love and warmth he radiated. In his presence, it was as if I had gained all the knowledge of the universe. All questions were answered, and they were full of deep meaning. I no longer felt confused and disoriented, everything seemed clear and meaningful. There was no verbal communication there. Because the way of communication there transcended the limits of words. I could sense a direct connection between Jesus and me in my thoughts. He understood the doubts and pains of my heart. There was nothing I could hide from him. Jesus clearly communicated to me an important message: everything is about love. The essence of this universe is love, and love is the root and driving force of all things. He showed me the power and infinite possibilities of love and gave me a deep appreciation of the importance and value of love. In addition, Jesus told me that here, time does not exist. He explained that time is just a concept, a tool created by man. Its only function is to remind us when we should do something. Here, I experienced the feeling of transcending time, where everything happens in the present moment and the past and the future are merged together. I understand that this may sound crazy or hard to understand, but here, these ideas become very clear and real. Here, too, I was able to see what it was like on Earth. I saw myself lying in a hospital bed. I was able to see clearly what was going on around me. My senses became extremely sharp and I was able to magnify and focus on what was in my field of vision. I did not feel pain, instead, I now felt very calm and serene. I heard a conversation between the doctor and my father. The doctor told my father that I had been unconscious for half an hour and that even if I woke up at this moment, I would probably have severe brain damage. I felt that the doctor was not professional and that she did not understand my state at the moment. In fact, I feel better now than I ever have. I realized that my soul was not a part of my body. In that moment, I transcended the confines of my physical body and became a silent observer. I was not interested in what was happening in the hospital, because my focus was on a higher level. I was no longer bound by the constraints of time and space. Although I cannot accurately describe this feeling in words. It left a deep imprint within me and changed my perspective on life and existence. It was at this time that Jesus made me decide to stay here or return to Earth. It was a difficult choice that left me in a state of inner conflict and struggle. Here, I felt endless love and peace. I was wrapped in an overwhelmingly beautiful energy, intimately connected to the love of God. Yet, I also saw my mother. She was crying in the hospital. I could feel the pain inside her. I knew that if I chose to stay here, she would lose me forever, which would bring her untold sorrow and pain. In the end, I made the difficult and painful decision. I chose to return to Earth and to my family. As I made my choice, Jesus sent his blessing on me. Suddenly, an invisible force began to guide me. My soul was breaking away from here. In that moment, I saw a bright flash of light that illuminated the whole scene. My soul was reconnecting with my body. I slowly felt the presence of my body and sensed the temperature and sounds around me. My consciousness returned to my body. I felt the rhythm of my breathing, the beating of my heart, and the sensation of blood flowing through my body. I slowly opened my eyes and saw the white walls of the hospital room. The moment I returned to my body, I understood that this was a rebirth. I gratefully placed my hand on my chest and felt my heartbeat. My mother's face showed surprise when she saw me awaken. She quickly came over to me, hugged me tightly, and gently said to me, "Son, you are finally awake." I felt her love wrapping around me and warming my heart. I knew that I had made the right choice. When I told my mom about the experience, she thought it was just a dream. I know that her reaction came from a lack of understanding of the supernatural experience. However, for me, it was a real and profound experience that could not be simply classified as a dream or a hallucination. At that time, the term near-death experience was not yet popular and few people talked openly about such experiences. Society had a deep prejudice against paranormal phenomena. So I chose to keep quiet and bury the experience deep inside. I knew that such an experience would not be accepted and understood by society. Over time, I have learned to accept this experience. I respect everyone's different views and beliefs about paranormal experiences. Now, 41 years later, I remain convinced that the experience was real and that it has had a profound impact on my life. Although I don't talk about it publicly, it is a constant reminder to me of the importance of love and tolerance. As the internet became more popular and information spread, I began to read articles and stories about near-death experiences on the internet. I found more and more people sharing similar experiences and feelings. Online, I found a community of understanding and accepting people sharing their own near-death experiences. I no longer felt alone. As the years passed, the term near-death experience began to become commonplace, and it became a hot topic of discussion and research. More and more books and documentaries were published. The topic is no longer ignored or marginalized, but has become a widely discussed area. I am very pleased because this means that more people are accepting this phenomenon. If someone asks me, "Do you believe that God really exists?" I would answer in the affirmative. When difficulties come, it is difficult for human beings to rely on their own strength to gain inner comfort and power. One day I found a Bible in my house. I had never read it carefully because I found its contents too cluttered. I turned to a random page that talked about the wisdom of God. I read and thought about it carefully, and I began to feel the depth of meaning. I came to understand that no matter how complex the dilemmas we face are, God's wisdom can transcend them all and give me guidance and clear direction. His wisdom will give us the courage and strength to face everything. I felt God's love and care, which gave me inner comfort and peace. After this incident, I often looked for wisdom and guidance in the Bible and applied it to my life. I became aware of the impact my actions and decisions have on myself and others. I have learned to be more humble and forgiving. I have learned to seek God's help in times of trouble and trust Him to provide solutions for me. I trust that His plan is always the best. In 1971, my father passed away. I was only 2 years old at that time. Since I was still a child, my family rarely mentioned him to me. All I knew was that he was a kind man. Growing up in an environment that lacked a father's love was not easy for me. While growing up, I often missed my father. Whenever I was in trouble, I longed for my father's guidance and support. My life seemed to be going well, but in reality I was deeply dissatisfied with the way I was living. I had been trying to be kind to the other people around me, but my life still sucked. This made me feel like a complete failure and I was in deep despair and depression. During that time, my heart was filled with pain. I prayed to God to be freed from the pain. After 3 years of marriage, my wife and I separated, which further increased my sense of despair. I had no control over anything and everything became meaningless. During that time, I stayed at a friend's house. I stopped eating regularly and I locked myself in my room all day. I lost all interest and motivation in life. That day, I was about to go to the kitchen to get a glass of water. As I entered the kitchen, my vision began to blur and I felt the air around me become heavy. As I picked up the glass, I felt the whole room spin. I fainted on the kitchen floor. My head began to hurt intensely and it felt like a heavy rock was pressing against my head. I tried to get back up, but my body had no more strength. Finally, I felt like I was slowly leaving this world. Suddenly, my view came up to the ceiling. I could see myself lying on the floor. My view was wide and clear, and my body was lying quietly on the floor, without the slightest movement. My body was like an abandoned stone. It had lost the state I once knew. I realized that this was what it really looked like. I didn't connect with it emotionally when I looked at it. I felt myself transcend the bonds of the physical world. I was now free of the bonds of my body. And I felt free and pure. Suddenly, a darkness enveloped me. Just then, a bright light penetrated the darkness. The light gradually gathered into a female figure. She appeared before me like an angel, emanating an aura of peace and tranquility. She gazed at me with loving eyes. Her voice was very gentle. She seemed to know my inner pain and confusion and was willing to listen to what I had to say. Her presence gave me courage and strength, making me feel less alone and helpless. I knew that this female figure was the Virgin Mary. Her presence not only relieved my inner pain, but also purified my heart. In her company, I reviewed my past life. She helped me to re-experience and understand the experiences that had caused me pain. I saw the loneliness and frustration I had often experienced. The Blessed Virgin Mary did not leave me in sorrow. Instead, she encouraged me to learn from it and to transform that pain into inner strength and opportunities for growth. She showed me the effects and consequences of my past actions. With her selfless love and wisdom, the Blessed Virgin Mary guided me to re-examine my way of life. The Blessed Virgin Mary led me into a sacred space. There, time no longer mattered. This space was filled with divine energy and gave me an overwhelming sense of relaxation and peace. I arrived in front of a huge archway that was magnificent. The arch seemed to connect the passage between earth and heaven. It seemed to be sending me an invitation. Suddenly, a bell rang out, and it was so melodious. Its sound echoed throughout the space. Then, I heard the beautiful singing of the angels. Their voices were very pure. The songs were filled with blessings and joy. They welcomed my arrival. As I heard these beautiful voices, I was filled with doubts inside. Is this all for me? Do I deserve this kind of treatment? I am just a very ordinary person, from an ordinary family with an ordinary education. I have no special achievements or contributions. Do these solemn courtesies really belong to me? These questions filled my heart. And I felt how small I was. The Blessed Virgin Mary seemed to sense my doubts. She told me that heaven does not measure a person's past achievements. Here, every soul is equal. Every soul is irreplaceable. No matter what your past is, you are worthy to be accepted. Here, I also met Jesus. He did not take the specific form we are familiar with, but I was able to perceive his presence. He radiated an endless light that was filled with compassion and wisdom. I could feel his unconditional love, which surpassed any human emotion that could be experienced. The light of Jesus wraps around me and warms my soul. He does not need words to communicate with me. There is a spiritual communication between us that transcends words. I could feel his love as he drew near to me, a feeling I cannot describe in exact words. He asked me, "Do you really want to die like this?" My heart became very complicated. I knew that in front of him, there was no way for me to lie. I also didn't know how I should answer him. I didn't have the courage to say an affirmative answer because I wasn't sure if I really wanted to give up my life. I wanted help and guidance. I said to Jesus, "Lord, I am not sure." I felt great pain and despair inside. Please lead me, give me wisdom and courage, and help me to find true life. My answer was not perfect, but it was my truest thought. Jesus knows the pain and confusion in my heart. In this moment, he showed me two different kinds of my life and helped me see the possibilities of the future. In the first scene, I saw myself surrounded by darkness and I appeared in an abandoned city. I am standing alone on a deserted street. The walls of the buildings were covered with faded paint. Disappointment and despair filled my heart, and a look of helplessness spread across my face. I tried to walk forward, but every step was heavy and difficult, as if a stone was pressing down on me. I felt the power of self-destruction, which relentlessly bound me in the darkness. Next, I saw a second scene. I saw myself appearing in a garden. The sun was pouring down on me, giving me warmth and vitality. I was standing on a patch of grass with flowers emitting an enchanting fragrance. I felt inner peace and joy, and a smile spread across my face. Surrounded by the laughter and cheers of people who care for and support each other, I take confident and light steps. Jesus asked me which kind of life you want. I answered, the second one. He whispered, "My child, you have made a wise choice. I cannot interfere directly with human behavior, but I will guide you to the true life. You need to find inner peace. I will give you the strength and courage to face the challenges of life." Jesus paused, then continued, "Above all, believe that you are worthy. Don't measure your worth by external standards." I listened carefully to Jesus' guidance. I answered Jesus reverently, "Lord, I will listen to your guidance, try to find inner peace, and influence others with love. I will believe in my own values and start a new life." Jesus said to me, "My child, you have taken an important step. I will walk with you until you find a truly meaningful life. Be assured that my love will always be with you." I felt hope and courage inside because I knew that with Jesus by my side, would be on a path full of light. I know that it is time to get out of here. Jesus wrapped me in his light and I felt an overwhelmingly gentle power. We slowly passed through the huge archway, and the scene before me was fading away. When I re-entered the earth, I found myself lying on a soft bed. The sun was shining through the window and the warmth filled the air. I felt my body filled with strength and my mind became clear. Beside the bed, the Blessed Virgin Mary sat quietly, her eyes full of care. I looked at her gratefully, knowing that she was always watching over me. Jesus stood on the other side of the room, his gaze revealing his endless love for me. He whispered, "You have returned from heaven with hope and a mission. Now you have the opportunity to reshape your life." I took a deep breath and felt the determination and resolve within me. I knew that my experience in heaven had given me a new perspective and strength. And I was going to use it to change myself and those around me. Suddenly, my friend walked into the room. In that very moment, Jesus and the Virgin Mary disappeared in front of me, and their presence seemed like a mere dream. My friend told me that he came back and found me lying on the kitchen floor, so he helped me to the bed. He asked me if I needed to be taken to the hospital. I shook my head gently. I told him that I felt fine now. I explained that although something unusual had just happened, I was back to normal. I felt a sense of inner peace and no discomfort whatsoever. My friend gazed at me as if she could not believe my statement. Although Jesus and the Virgin Mary had disappeared, their blessings were still in my heart. I was now feeling very hungry because I had not eaten properly for many days. I decided to go to the supermarket to buy food. As I pushed open the door to my room, I felt the warmth of the sun, which gave me an energy that I had not felt for a long time. I then realized that I hadn't left my room for 2 months. After returning from the supermarket, I started preparing dinner. A tantalizing aroma was bubbling in the pan. Finishing the last dish, I set them on the table. My friend and I sat around the table, enjoying the food and chatting at the same time. I decided that from now on, I would face life positively and find more joy and meaning. The difficulties during this time are only temporary, and I believe I have the ability to overcome them and meet the challenges ahead. I also expressed my gratitude to my friend.